$900. At Bailey's Funeral Home, we believe that no one should feel overwhelmed or anxious about funeral expenses. So when it's time to plan a funeral, join a burial society, or make pre-arrangements when service and costs matter, call Bailey's Funeral Home at 440-2558 or visit us at baileysfuneralhome.org. Bailey's Funeral Home, still providing the perfect tribute any family can afford.
Stephen Barry Cox, also known as Rockstone, of Latente, who resided at Redgate St. David, died on Tuesday, May 30th, 2023, at the age of 61. Left to cherish his memory are his wife Shanta Cox, son Lennon Cox, adopted son Kevin Horsford in Canada, mother Esther Cox in Trinidad, adopted mother Cecilia Nell Ridgway, stepmother Louisa Paul Mitchell, brothers Leon and Terry Cox, sister Cindy Frank in Trinidad, aunt Nola Cox in the USA, uncles Valentine Cox in the US and Roy Guillaume, mother-in-law Anne Williams, sisters-in-law Jesslyn Pear, Candy, Petra and Denise Williams, brothers-in-law Andy Williams, Neil Spider Williams and Darius Frank in Trinidad, many nieces and nephews, many cousins including Kenrick Calder, Cassandra Mitchell Steele and family, Sheila Rees and family, Anne-Marie Calder and family in Trinidad, Stephanie Mitchell Mark, Francis Ruffin and family, Kenrick Ruffin and Merlin, Tessa Ruffin in the USA, and Tyrone Cox in the USA. Other relatives and friends including Worthy Mitchell and family, Hulla Belma and family of Latente, Ishmael Pear and family, the Bob family of Latente, Althea Regis Yearwood and family, the Thomas, Batiste and Guillaume families of Munich, Nicola Paul and family, Rosie Lessie, Bernadette Gordon and family, Christina Lewis and family, Olive Andrews, the boys under the cashew tree, the guys at Big Arms Shop, the guys by On the Edge, the staff of the Pest Management Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, the Grenada Amateur Radio Club, and the Grenada Citizens Band Radio Club, other relatives, friends, and neighbors of Latente and Redgate St. David. The funeral service for the late Stephen Barry Cox, also known as Rockstone, of Latente, who resided at Redgate St. David, will take place on Thursday, 22nd June at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Crowshoe RC Church, and interment will be at the Crowshoe Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Veronica Cislin Paul, also known as Cisso, of Montfendu St. Patrick, passed away on Friday 19th May 2023 at the age of 85. She was the mother of Louisa Paul, also known as Latina and Tina, Victor and Leno Paul in Canada, Clifton Paul, also known as Pablo, and Cuthbert Paul, also known as Curtie, Black Boy and Justice. Stepmother of Joan Jane Warwood, Helen Alexander, Augustine Thomas, Leroy Warwood, Hester Lewis and Magna Cyrus. Grandmother of 25, great-grandmother of 26, sister of Raymond, also known as Woodley, mother-in-law of Grace, Jean and Rona, aunt of many including Verna, Yvonne, Martin, Wendy, Lucky, Adrienne, Trevor, Selwyn, Maudlin, Eunice, Janice, Gerald and Arlene. Caregivers Natalie Bailey, Veronica Edwards and Lynthia Thomas. Close friend of Leela Merger. Many other relatives and close friends, including the pastor and members of the Soteres Evangelical Church, Pastor Gerard Keynes Douglas and family, the Paul family, the Peters and Brown families of Frequente, the Philip family of Montrich and Montrule, the Thomas and Ford families, the Edward family of Rosehill, the Batiste family of Montfendu and Medes, the Bernard family of Snellhall, the Nelson and Merger families, Fabian Roberts and family, and friends and neighbors of Montfendu, Rosehill, and in the USA. The funeral of the late Veronica Cicely Paul, also known as Sisu, of Montfendu St. Patrick, will take place on Thursday, 22nd June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Satires Evangelical Church, and interment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Debbie Anderson of Birch Grove St. Andrew, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, passed away on Friday, 19th May 2023 at the age of 59. She was the mother of Keishelle Anderson, Noella Anderson, Junior Anderson in the USA, Zia Frederick, Jadon, and Jaron Anderson, grandmother of Yashawn, Hadasha, Keziah and Kalaya Anderson, and Ethan Lewis, stepdaughter of Shirley Lewis in the USA, sister of Anne-Marie Edwards, also known as Michelle Anderson in the USA, Rennie Lewis in the US, Jacqueline Phillip, Richard Lewis, also known as Pilot, Jenilyn Lewis in the USA, Brent Lewis, also known as Bass, Carvel Frederick, Kennelyn DeGale, and Irma Lewis in the USA, mother-in-law of Kizzy Anderson in the USA, many nieces and nephews including Marion Frederick and Kamasha Anderson, many other relatives and friends including Sister Gloria, Emma, Judy, Lynthia, the Reverend Joachim Phillip and family, the Lewis, Batiste, and Edwards families of Willis, the Anderson, Gittins, and Bain families of Birch Grove, the Women's Ministry and members of Wallace Memorial Pentecostal Church, and friends and neighbors of Birch Grove and New Hampshire. The funeral of the late Debbie Anderson of Birch Grove St. Andrew, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, will take place on Thursday, 22nd June at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Wallace Memorial Pentecostal Church, New Hampshire St. George, and interment will be at the New Hampshire Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Anne Bridgman, also known as Auntie Anne of Byland St. Andrew, passed away on Thursday, 25th May 2023, at the age of 97, left to mourn her children Louise, Lucy, Elsa and Dora Bridgman, all residing in Canada, Gail Bridgman in the USA, and Bernie Dubiset, Vicky Robertson, and Eric Bridgman in Grenada, brother Ferdinand Thomas in Trinidad, 9 grandchildren Kira, Kaylee and Siobhan Bridgman, Narlin Roberts, Nixon Robertson in Grenada, Kaydell, Kerry and Jasmine in Canada, and Erilyn Robertson in the US, 5 great-grands, nieces and nephews including Sherma Stewart and Leonard Romaine and many others, daughter-in-law Esther Bridgman, sister-in-law Margaret de Bellet in Grenada, 5 sons-in-law Clarence Dubiset and Errol Robertson in Grenada, Anthony Mitchell and Jean-Louis Seguer in Canada, caregivers Geraldine Phillip, Rhonda Francis, Suzanne Williams, and Sally Ann Andrew. Other relatives and friends including Kanasha Bridgman, Delma Thomas, parliamentary representative, Dr. Andy Bernard, Ronald and Levon Bridgman, Nurse Elwise Charles, the Bridgman, Thomas, and McIntyre families of Bylands and Paraclete, the parishioners of Bylands RC and St. Michael's RC, and friends and neighbors of Bylands and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Anne Bridgman of Byland St. Andrew will take place on Thursday, 22nd June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Andrew the Apostle RC Church, Grenville, and entombment will be at the Grand Bras Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Pat Haley's Bruno, also known as Toma, of Mardi Gras St. George, who resided in the USA, passed away on Monday, 5th June 2023 in the USA, at the age of 60. He was the husband of Althea Alexander Bruno, father of Danielle, Pathia, and Tristan Bruno in the USA, grandfather of Caleb Rajan, father-in-law of Stephen Rajan, son of Lucy Donald of Westerhall, and William Crew, also known as Atwa of Willis, brother of Charmaine Superville, Sonia Crew, Beverly Crew Hagley, Chad, Nigel, Nicole and Gary Crow in the USA, Kellen Donald and Kathy Ann Worm in Grenada, nephew of Merle James and Samuel Bruno, uncle of many, brother-in-law of Janice James, Brian Superville, Annette Aird, Kester and Peter Johnson, Kenneth, Eric, Cicely Blackman, Suzanne Donald, Brian Superville, Rondell Hagley, Rihanna Joseph, and Cyril Worm, cousin of many, many other relatives and friends including the Clarkson, Grant and Musgrave families, Roger Mitchell, Junior Batiste, Raul Lewis, Steve Sylvester, Patsy, and friends and neighbors of Mardi Gras, St. Paul's, and in the USA. The funeral of the late Pat Haley's Bruno of Mardi Gras St. George, who resided in the USA, will take place on Friday 23rd June at 1:30 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Prayer, St. Paul, St. George, and interment will be at the Mount Airy Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Leisha Stanislaus of Guava Estate, St. John, a student of the St. John's Christian Secondary School, passed away on Wednesday 31st May 2023 at the age of 17. She was the daughter of Roxanne Williams and Lemrick Stanislaus, granddaughter of Rennick Elias, Lewis Benjamin, and Lewin Williams, stepdaughter of Albert Rose in the USA, niece of Rosalind, Nadia, Vaughan and Asher Williams, Clasida and Cosilda Stanislaus, Lee, Charmaine Passy-Lecret, Rennick, Kenrick and Denrick Stanislaus, Benedict, Jerry and Dave Elias, and Junior Joseph, cousin of many, many other relatives and close friends, including Byron, Kelowna, Tamaya, Shaquana, Zakira, Nisa Williams, Renee Bernard, Lorna Henry and family, the Agard family of St. David, the Elias, Williams, Stanislaus, and Benjamin families, the Hector family of Concord, David Hopkin, Irma Duncan, Cletus and family of Bylands, the principal and staff of the St. John's Christian Secondary and St. Peter's RC School, members of the St. Peter's RC Church, and friends and neighbors of Guava Estate, Loretto, Brothers, and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Leisha Stanislaus of Guava Estate, St. John, will take place on Friday 23rd June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's Catholic Church, Guava, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Catherine and Cilla McMeo Mark, also known as Anso, of Windsor Forest, St. David, who resided in the USA, passed away on Friday 2nd June 2023 at the age of 90. She was the mother of Celia Tracy McMeo Lovett, Anne McMeo Mackenzie, Julian, Carly, Dawson, also known as Priest, Christine, Bernadette, and Barbara McMeo, also known as Bobs, all in the USA. Adopted mother of Marva Bowen Neptune, Linda McMeo, Lisa Brown in the USA, and Jacinta Telesford. Grandmother of Camille, Kazian, Keisha, Jermaine, Barry, Ricky, Kimon, Rhea, Gemma, and Julina. Great-grandmother of Kira, Janae, Lauren, and Milani. Aunt of many. Other relatives and close friends including Lorna Jacobs in the USA, the McMeo and Lazarus families of Windsor Forest, Menorca, Pedmotar, and Mardi Gras, the Greenwich, Mackenzie, and Mitchell families of Windsor Forest, the Ogilvy and Redhead families of Mardi Gras, and the Rush family of Windsor Forest and in the USA. The funeral service for the late Catherine and Cilla McMeo Mark, also known as Anso, of Windsor Forest, St. David, who resided in the USA, will take place on Friday 23rd June in the USA. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island. Private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Rosanna Niles Mitchell, also known as Tanti and Granny, of Granton, New Hampshire, St. George, passed away on Friday, 26th May 2023, at the age of 79. She was the mother of Cielo Mitchell in Canada, Maria Niles Jarvis in the USA, Mary Magdalene Niles, Glenda Niles Johnson, Elizabeth Niles, Noel Mitchell, and Bevan Niles Braveboy. Adopted mother of Sharon Thomas and Christopher Lewis, stepmother of Cletus and Trinidad, Cecilia and Michael in the USA, grandmother of Elton, Brianna, Laura, Ashley, Jamal, Shamal, Joseph, Josiah, Jovan, Samuel, and Jodell, sister of Joel, Hubert and Christopher Niles, Nolly Campbell, also known as Teacher Nolly, Vita Lewis in St. Croix, and Mabel Nixon in the USA. Mother-in-law of Trevor Jarvis, Cecil Johnson, Joseph Lucky Braveboy, Winifred Mitchell, and Janice Ross Mitchell. Sister-in-law of Christine Sylvester in Canada, Cynthia and Brenda Niles, Beryl Pear, Alberta Sandy, Alan Hagley, and Edwin Hay. Grandmother-in-law of Darica Julian. Caregiver, Shirley and Murrell. Aunt of many in Canada, the USA, England, St. Croix, Trinidad, and Grenada. Many cousins, other relatives and friends including the Niles family of St. David, St. Andrew, River Road, St. Patrick, New Hampshire and Barbados, the Mitchell and Sylvester families in the USA, the UK, Canada, Happy Hill and New Hampshire, the Francis family of Vendham, Mrs. Muriel Mitchell, and Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, Washington Edwards, Roy Sylvester, Shirley DeCoto, Ancilla Mark, Joanne Amede, Gary Regis, Joshua DeCoto, Cynthia Noel, Richie, the pastor and members of Wallace Memorial Pentecostal, the Constantine Methodist and Seventh-day Adventist churches, and friends and neighbours of Grenville Vale, New Hampshire and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Rosanna Niles Mitchell, also known as Tanti and Granny, of Granton, New Hampshire, St. George, will take place on Monday 26th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's, according to Pentecostal rites, and interment will be at the St. George's Center Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. Cynthia Joyce Magdalene Elias, also known as Cinty, of Warv Estate, St. John, passed away on Thursday, June 1st, 2023, at the age of 76. She was the mother of Christopher and Crispin Elias in the USA, grandmother of Amira and Madison Elias in the US, mother-in-law of Jenny and Debbie Ann Elias in the USA, sister of Rennick Elias and Helen Raymond in Grenada, Louisa Elias, Ann Walker, Euris Ambrose, and Cecil St. Louis in the USA, niece of Cicely Phillips, sister-in-law of Roy Raymond, Ambrose, Rodothica Elias, and Alma St. Louis, 40 nieces and nephews including Beverly and Stephen Elias, Joseph, Jennifer, Sarona Abraham, Simon Andrews, Albert Andel, Lemrick Stanislaus, Tim Elias, and Lennon Abraham, many grandnieces and grandnephews, many other relatives and friends including Michael, Tara, Sonia, Marlene, Cuthbert Simon, Vernis, Leno, Tanti, Ophelia, Elisha, Jennifer Thomas, Roseanne Marshall, the Ashton family of Warv, the Stanislaus, Elias and Noel families of Warv Estate, the Walker family, the James family of Cloget, the Best family of Mount Granby, members of the Florida and St. Peter's Catholic churches, and friends and neighbours of Warv Estate and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Cynthia Joyce Magdalene Elias, also known as Cinty, of Warv Estate, St. John, will take place on Tuesday, 27th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Peter's Catholic Church, Grove, and interment will be at the Douglaston Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Fitzroy Calivan John, also known as Let It Go, of the United Kingdom and Trinidad, who resided at Munro Street, Victoria, St. Mark, passed away on Thursday, June 8th, 2023, at the age of 79. Left to mourn are his wife Carol Darbo John, stepdaughters Janelle and Crystal, stepson Jonelle, grandchild Kyrie, other relatives and friends including Judith, Mantis, Cherry Ann, Fiuella, Marilyn, Anthea, Anne-Marie, Gracelle, Neil, Jacqueline, and neighbours and friends in the United Kingdom, Trinidad, and Victoria and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Fitzroy Calivan John, also known as Let It Go, of the United Kingdom and Trinidad, who resided at Munro Street, Victoria, St. Mark, will take place on Wednesday, 28th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Mark RC Church, Victoria, and interment will be at the Coast Guard Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Michael Belgrave of Tempe St. George passed away on Saturday, 27th May 2023, at the age of 87. He was the father of Ernesta Belgrave Charles in the USA and Donald Belgrave in Grenada, brother of Jerome, Theophilus and Ermine Sargent, Cecilia Aline, Elizabeth Peters, Bernadette Noel, Gordon Thomas in the USA, Godwin Thomas in Trinidad, Wainwright Belgrave and Joycelyn Belgrave Tamar in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Charles George in Grenada, grandfather of Anthony and Jeremiah Charles in the USA, uncle of many including Frederica Cummings, Lisa Francis, Keisha Johnson, Christopher, Sheldon and Blondell George, Carla George Pivot, Krista George Smart, Jamie, Alistair, Adrian and Andre Gittins, Devon Lacrette, Ricky and Diane Bailey, brother-in-law of Yvonne Thomas, Cecilia Denise George, Gastel Foster, Glenda Belgrave, Jennifer Thomas, Cheryl Belgrave and Tanya Brown. Many other close friends including Big Boy Bullen, Leonard Thomas, Swindler Jones, Eunice Tamer and many others too numerous to mention. The memorial service for the late Joseph Michael Belgrave of Tempe St. George will take place on Wednesday, 28th June at 1 p.m. Service will be held at the Garden of Remembrance Funeral Chapel, Cemetery Hill, St. George's. Arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Kim McSween, also known as Kim Cooper of Grand Aunts, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, passed away on Monday, 29th May 2023, at the age of 49. She was the mother of Terry Cooper, Shantae McSween, Dwayne Williams Jr., and Suraj McSween, adopted mother of Malian Leslie, Shakila Duncan, Trina Celestine, and Giovanna Antwine, grandmother of Daviel, David Jr., Adira, Adrian, Tristan, and Ishmael, stepdaughter of Gloria Toussaint in the USA, sister of many including Charles Toussaint in the US, Elwyn Cooper, also known as Ello, Christopher Joseph, Crispin Augustine in Canada, Sean Best, Nigel Cooper, Damien in the USA, Kathian Cooper Jacob, Christine Felix, and Daniela McSween, adopted sister of John McGilvery, sister-in-law of Marcia Toussaint, Aaron Jacob, Merrill Loha, Lynn Ketu, Joseph, Avril Best, and Lennox Felix, mother-in-law of Siobhan Jack and Damien Depredine, close friend of Sylvan McIntyre. Many aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives and close friends including the McSween, Cooper, Charles, Superville and Stevenson families, Diane Mark and family, Lennox John, the 1990 graduating class of the GBSS, the management and staff of Spice Island Beach Resort, the pastor and members of the Church of God Worldwide Mission, Nigel Lacroix and family, Elon Robinson and family, and friends and neighbors of Grand Aunts, New Hampshire and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Kim McSween, also known as Kim Cooper, of Grand Aunts, who resided at New Hampshire St. George, will take place on Thursday, 29th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Gateway Assembly, Point-Celine, St. George, and interment will be at the Grand Isle Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Irene Anastasia St. Hilaire, also known as Mother, of Dudmar St. David, a well-known market vendor, passed away on Friday 26 May 2023 at the age of 95. She was the mother of Mary St. Hilaire, Jennifer Mitchell, Cynthia Marichou Phillip, Douglas St. Hilaire, Dominic Mitchell, and Keisha St. Hilaire Licorice, grandmother of John Greenwich, Ernesto, Orlando, Leanna and Aquino Romaine, Shondell and Alicia Mitchell, Donnelly Albert, Rochelle Franklin, Wendy Ann Greenwich, Kira and Kira Jaggernaut, and Marissa Sleeman, great-grandmother of many including Naisha St. Hilaire, Kizzy, Akim and Sasha Greenwich, Amaya Jaggernaut, Reginald Aidan Ferguson, Delon Mitchell, and Neon Licorice, great-great-grandmother of many, mother-in-law of Hugh Romaine, Ian Phillip, and Nigel Licorice, sister-in-law of Rosa Mitchell, aunt of many in the USA and Grenada including Alan, Ricky, Calvin, Velda, Jenilyn, Joan, Hermelin, and Joseph Mitchell. Many other close relatives and friends including Reno Mitchell, Legas, Louis Victor and family, the Honoré, Let, Mitchell, Hazard and Francis families, the St. Hilaire family of Carriacou and Crowshoe, and friends and neighbours of Dudmar and surrounding areas. The funeral of the late Irene Anastasia St. Hilaire, also known as Mother, of Dudmar St. David, will take place on Thursday, 29th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the Vincent's Pentecostal Church, and interment will be at the Windsor Forest Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Paul Elrene Phillip, also known as Pablo, Bunnyleg and Bug, of Glebe Street, Sauters, who resided at La Fortune St. Patrick, marine biologist and environmental consultant for climate change, and past teacher of McDonald's College, Grenada Boys Secondary School, and St. Rose Modern Secondary School, passed away on Tuesday, June 6, 2023, at the age of 68. He is survived by his partner, Rosa Evis Alexander. He was the father of Marcel in the USA, Andy, Che, Devon, also known as Blacks, Kellon, Michelle, Nasha, Naja, Delon, Ashney, Ashel, Shondi, Elrene, Joshua, Rachel, Donna, and Debbie. Brother of Rosemary Patterson in the United Kingdom, Hazelan, Hector, Glitter and Pauline in Grenada, Joyce, Winston, Joycelyn and Gloria in the USA, Raymond, Grace, and Jacqueline in Trinidad. Grandfather of Che Jr., Umaya, Tamaya, Azariah, Carlos, Sydney, Namali, Naisha, Octavia, Ravon, Adaya, Wadden, O'Brien, Kalia, Keziah, Annabella, and Andy Jr. Uncle of many including Kelly, Daryl, Stefana, Jamelia, Melissa, Tonya, Bushies, Richard, and Kirk. Brother-in-law of many including Rose, Walter, Bernadette, Teresa, Geneva, and Theodore. Many other relatives and friends including Mr. Linford and Mrs. Jeanette, Miss Deborah, Mr. Brown and family, the MacDonald family of Hermitage, Andre, Span, Kenny, Jonelle, Toby, Mr. Joseph, Sonia, Anne-Marie, Dolliver and Alima, the Courtney family of Paraclete, the GEF Small Grant, past and current co-workers of Fisheries, Environment, Spectro and Small Grant, and friends and neighbours of Sauters, La Fortune and surrounding areas. The funeral service for the late Paul Elrene Phillip, also known as Pablo, Bunnyleg and Bug, of Glebe Street, Sauters, who resided at La Fortune St. Patrick, will take place on Thursday, 29th June at 1 p.m. Funeral service will be held at the St. Patrick RC Church, Sauters, and interment will be at the Morley Cemetery. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Carol Norma John, of Lower Capital, Birchgrove, St. Andrew, passed away on Sunday, 18th June 2023, at the age of 43. The funeral arrangements for the late Carol Norma John of Lower Capital, Birchgrove, St. Andrew will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe, St. Mark, passed away on Friday 16th June 2023 at the age of 70. The funeral arrangements for the late Joy Veronica Ned of Grosse Pointe, St. Mark will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Veronica Marichaud of Vendham, St. George, passed away on Thursday 15th June 2023 at the age of 85. The funeral arrangements for the late Veronica Marichaud of Vendham, St. George will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Peter Densley Martin, also known as Parley, of Chantimel, who resided at Plains, St. Patrick, died on Monday 12th June 2023 at the age of 80. The funeral arrangements for the late Peter Densley Martin, also known as Parley, of Chantimel, who resided at Plains, St. Patrick, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix's, Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Wester Hall, St. David and in Trinidad, passed away on Friday 16th June 2023 at the age of 81. The funeral arrangements for the late Monica Bernadette Samuel Alexis, also known as Monix's, Monix or Young Girl, of La Femme, who resided at Wester Hall, St. David and in Trinidad, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour, St. George, died on Wednesday, June 14th, 2023, at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Garvin Sean McGilvery of Beausejour, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Aaron John, also known as AJ, Aquila and Baker, of Mondelez, St. George, died on Sunday 11th June 2023 at the age of 73. The funeral arrangements for the late Aaron John, also known as AJ, Aquila and Baker, of Mondelez, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Monjaloo, who resided at Woburn, St. George, passed away on Tuesday 13th June 2023 at the age of 73. The funeral arrangements for the late Hubert Ewart Braffett, also known as Bert, Campaign and Braff, of Monjaloo, who resided at Woburn, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue, St. David, who resided in the USA, passed away on Thursday, 15th June 2023, at the age of 62. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Hagley, also known as Bonnie, of Bellevue, St. David, who resided in the USA, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Gertrude Thompson, also known as Alona George of Chantimel, St. Patrick, who resided at Fontenoy, St. George, passed away on Tuesday, 13th June 2023, at the age of 75. The funeral arrangements for the late Gertrude Thompson, also known as Alona George of Chantimel, St. Patrick, who resided at Fontenoy, St. George, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Joseph Lewis, also known as Choiceman, of Florida St. John, who resided at Coast Guard St. Mark, passed away on Saturday 10th June 2023 at the age of 83. The funeral arrangements for the late Joseph Lewis, also known as Choiceman, of Florida St. John, who resided at Coast Guard St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Nicola Carrot George of Rosehill St. Patrick passed away on Thursday, 8th June 2023, at the age of 39. The funeral arrangements for the late Nicola Carrot George of Rosehill St. Patrick will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Claudia Selma Roberts of Paraclete, who resided at Wells Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, passed away on Tuesday, 6th June 2023, at the age of 58. The funeral arrangements for the late Claudia Selma Roberts of Paraclete, who resided at Wells Road, Grenville, St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Cathy St. John Worm of Grand Aunt St. George, who resided in New York, USA, passed away on Thursday, 17th February 2022 in New York at the age of 50. A funeral service was held on Saturday, 26th February 2022 in Brooklyn, New York. The funeral arrangements for the service to be held in Grenada will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Augustus David King, also known as Zab, Beggs and Augustus of Bylands, who resided at Subies St. Andrew, passed away on Saturday, 3rd June 2023 at the age of 70. The funeral arrangements for the late Augustus David King, also known as Zab, Beggs and Augustus of Bylands, who resided at Subies St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Monica Mary Williams of Tempe St. George, an employee of Nawassa, passed away on Saturday, May 30th, 2023 in Trinidad, at the age of 54. The funeral arrangements for the late Monica Mary Williams of Tempe St. George will be given a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Moses Gurry James, also known as Rose O and Papa Mose, of Chantilly St. Andrew, who resided at Duquesne St. Mark, passed away on Tuesday, May 30th, 2023, at the age of 90. The funeral arrangements for the late Moses Gurry James, also known as Rose O and Papa Mose, of Chantilly St. Andrew, who resided at Duquesne St. Mark, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home. Imelda Lena Batiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, died on Monday, May 1st, 2023 in London, at the age of 67. The funeral arrangements for the late Imelda Lena Batiste, also known as Mama, of Chantimel St. Patrick, who resided in London, England, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Bailey's Funeral Home. Pastor Dr. Adrian Leroy Marast, also known as Bill, of Hope City St. Andrew, passed away on Friday, May 5th, 2023, at the age of 75. The funeral arrangements for the late Pastor Dr. Adrian Leroy Marast, also known as Bill, of Hope City St. Andrew, will be given in a subsequent broadcast. Funeral arrangements entrusted to Lacqua Brothers Funeral Home.
The management and staff of MTV extend deepest condolences to those of you whose loved ones have passed on. Thank you for watching.
Death and dying are the inevitable events and realities of life. The passing of a friend or loved one often brings with it the feelings of sadness, grief, and pain. There is always the period of sorrow and mourning for those who experience such loss. Brothers and sisters, particularly in this time and season of how you feel and what you may be thinking as a result of the passing of your loved one, there is a source and means of comfort that you can tap into. That source and means of comfort is God and His Word that speaks specifically and directly to our situation. Hear the word to you today. He says, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." What I believe he is saying through this verse to you and everyone that is now experiencing some measure of grief or sorrow, and what I also believe is implied in that which he says, are the following. Mourning is an understandable, normal, and real expression of your emotions. Mourning presents the opportunity for us to experience the comfort of family, friends, and loved ones. Mourning identifies us with each other in our humanity and morality.